Feel free to ask questions to Gary during the presentation, and we've got a few more people, looks like, that popped in here. A little Gail. And all right, well, I'll just do a quick intro for those that are here. My name is Adon Torres. I'm the operations manager and expo presenter coordinator here at Midwest Mountaineering. I've been here 10 years or so, and have really enjoyed working with adventurers, explorers, vendors, exhibitors, customers, all their dogs that come into the shop. So I'm really thankful that we can have the expos twice a year and still be able to incorporate these virtual presentations, which is kind of a new thing for us. If you're interested in learning more about that, we have a nice catalog of previous presentations from the Spring Expo this past year, last fall's Expo, just on our YouTube page. So if you want to go down a nice little rabbit hole of outdoor education and inspiration, that'd be a great place to go. If you're local and in the area and you want to make a stop by the store, we have Lakes and Legends Brewery, we have food trucks, we have live tarp demos, and some live in-person presentations at Hanson Hall. So with that being said, I want to introduce Gary Scott of Right Path Adventures. He'll be presenting on Croatia, Slovenia, and Slovakia. And without further ado, take it away, Gary.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks so much for your help. Really appreciate it. Well, hi, everyone. I'm calling from Slovakia. In the background is my half-acre of land I bought a couple of years ago. Beautiful spot. We put a little cabin on it. My wife, Katarina's Slovakian. We met while we were both working in the Dolomites 10 years ago, and got married a couple of years ago in New Zealand. So it's a beautiful spot. I've been building a brick wall today, so my arms are rather heavy, but excited to talk to you guys about some countries and places that I love and spend a lot of time in. And feel free to ask any questions. But a little bit of my background. I grew up in rather a flat area of Australia, but learned that Mount Everest was the highest mountain in the world, and it became my desire to climb it. I went with my father to Lake Louise in Canada, paddled out on a boat, looked at the mountains, and I was just awestruck and told him I wanted to be a mountain climber. So I was a professional mountain climber, rock climbing guide. This is in the Sierras of California. Then started mountaineering, guided all over the world, 40 treks to Nepal and 2 up Mount Everest, 3 to Denali. Happy to say I've never had an accident, never had a guest with me have an accident on over 250 international trips. And now I'm a walking guide in Europe. And I love Europe a lot because of a lot of reasons: the history, the culture, the food. I don't have to worry about altitude. I don't have to worry about stomach problems or getting cold or a lot of stress that you find in the Himalayas, for example. So today, so I was guiding for a long time in Nepal, and then started guiding in Europe, and just fell in love with the Dolomites of northern Italy. And from there, I started exploring nearby countries. I remember dropping off some guests at the Venice airport and driving 3 hours, that's all it is, to Croatia, and just falling in love with Croatia. And then I had some guests that had gone with me to the Dolomites, and they asked me if I'd take them to Slovenia. So I went there to explore. And then after meeting my wife, came to Slovakia and realized what a beautiful country that was. And so I'm now doing trips there. So we'll start with Croatia, and I'm going to see if I can just move that a little bit. I guess I can't. That's okay. So this shows a map of Croatia, a very long country, over 1,000 islands, and has the Adriatic Sea between it and Italy. And I've written up some things to talk about, that you might be interested in. So Croatia is a really cool country. And one of the things I was thinking about is, why go there? And probably with all of these three countries, one reason is there's still that sense of adventure there. I mean, going to France or the UK or whatever, there's not much adventure in that. There's the standard places and they're beautiful, but they're pretty much discovered and crowded. And Croatia and Slovenia and Slovakia, less so. Fewer tourists, fewer Americans, and just that kind of cool feeling of adventure and the unknown. There's countries I go to, and Montenegro, for example, which I didn't like. And I just didn't like the feel there. Sorry, Montenegro. It looks beautiful in the photographs, but when you get there up and close, so I just decided I'm not going to do trips there. And so I only go to places that I like, that I feel good about, and that make me feel good. I've done the coastline of Croatia many times, driven the whole way from Trieste all the way down to Montenegro and back. And that's a fun road trip, and that's a fun thing to do, stopping at the different places on the way. But I have a small company. It's just me, and I've been taking people around in my van on walking tours and walking adventures to Northern Italy, Croatia, Slovenia, and more recently Slovakia. And so spent a lot of time exploring these areas, and I'll just go to a place for a week, hang out, talk to the locals, look at everything there is to see, find cool restaurants, hotels, and after my season this year, I was in leading trips in the Dolomites and to Croatia and Slovenia. I went back to Croatia because I read about this wonderful hike with spectacular views, and it just wasn't. So I spent a lot of time doing things that might sound good or are written up as being great, but they're just not. So I probably save a lot of people a lot of time, and try and create an experience where people can see the best of these places and avoid the places that aren't worth going to. And Croatia is a big country, so you can spend a lot of time doing a lot of driving around to places that you hear about, but not necessarily that great. I did a talk a couple of years ago at Midwest Mountaineering, and 100 people in the room, and I said, how many people have heard of Dubrovnik? 100 hands go up. How many people have heard of Rovin? Nobody's hands went up. Coolest little place on the planet, let alone in Croatia. Nobody knows about it. So I missed Croatia during the pandemic, and 2020, nobody was traveling, and I really missed Croatia. I missed the Dolomites, but I also missed Croatia, and I've spent a lot of time there. So I do a couple of different trips, Croatian walking tour, and I call it walking because it's not really hiking, but there is, maybe 1 or 2 days of hiking. But this is a route where you start in Trieste, and so it's hard to fly into, and I want to talk about how to get there. It's not really worth flying into Croatia, maybe Zagreb, top right, which is the capital, but often you have to take convoluted long flights. It's much better to fly into, let's say, Venice and get a train over Trieste, or a regional flight to Pula, for example, and rent a car there. And it's not easy to get around Croatia. There's not really trains, and certainly not along the coast. And so the best idea is to, rent a car, even in Venice, and then do your trip. You can do a one-way to Dubrovnik or Split, Zadar, but a car is definitely the best way to get around. And there's some cool places: Motovan, Rovin, Pula. I'll show you some photos of Padia. These are some of the islands. And Plitvica is where the national parks is, where the waterfall and the lakes are, which is cool. Near Zadar, there's a beautiful Palenkia Gorge area with some hiking. And you're reading the guidebooks about Zadar, and it's supposed to be this really cool place. And there's these organ pipes that play music on the ocean, and been there 3 times, and you kind of go, okay. So yeah, it's worth a hour stop. And then, down to Trogir, which is near, what's the place? Split, which, sorry, I just don't like Split. Tried to like it, been there 3 times. I don't know, just the feel of the place. I thought Trogir was more cool. But I spend most of my time in the Istria Peninsula, and we'll talk about that later. But you can do some great road trips there, no doubt. There's some great, what I call hill towns, where the people congregated up on the top of the hills for protection. This area was invaded a lot, so it's got a lot of cool history. This is a 3,000-year-old town that has 3 walls. Interesting little unknown fact, Mario Andretti, the Formula One race car driver, was born here. But it's called Motovan, cool little place. And found a cool place to stay there, incredible restaurants, and it's best in the evening and in the morning, not during the day. There's nothing to do. There's hordes of tourists walking up and down the street. And so we just go there, spend the evening, and leave the next day. The lodge owners we stay with are fabulous, and they take us truffle hunting, which is a great experience. On our last time out, we found like 10 big truffles. And then the owner cooked them up the next morning. And just the position up there, looking down on the Myrna and the history of the Myrna. So I'm big into history, and I love talking to my guests about that. This is where they cut a forest. They cut the logs that they used to build the foundations of Venice. And they dragged them down with horses to the river, which they dredged, and they would pull them along the river with horses to the Adriatic, and then put them in ships and sail them over to Venice to build the foundations. And they found these logs, these trees, in lakes, so they were already like preserved. So just fascinating culture. And when you look at this town, you don't realize how high up it is, and then you get up there and the view, the sunsets and the sunrises are amazing. It's a very magical place. They say it's an area of interconnecting, they call them dragon lines there, but it's sort of Earth's energy lines. So it's a pretty awesome place. And we stay at this fabulous little hotel that I know the owners real well. And that's one of the fun things for me, going back every 6 months and maybe 2 or 3 trips in a row and getting to know these people. And so I only stay at places that are awesome. And, so I get to know the owners. So my guests are made to feel like, they're part of the family. This is a gal that came with her husband on a trip, and she's doing a Zoom call back to work in the courtyard. So there's the clock tower behind her, and just I like to find, fabulous places that make us feel good, make us feel like part of the family, make it a unique experience. So yeah, here's the owner of the lodge cooking up eggs in the morning with the truffles that we'd caught the day before, which was a really fun experience. The night before, we were sitting up drinking all their free grappa, which was fun. So this is in Rovin. This is our city guide on the left. I've gone through many, many city guides to find the right one. She's fabulous. And her name literally translates as volcano. And so we head out on a couple of hour hike, walk to see the city, learn about the history, the culture, the architecture, stop for coffee at some cool places. And, I often have 4 to 6 to 8 people on a group, and we stay, as I mentioned, at, just fabulous hotels that are pretty hard to find. I happen to have some contacts with some of the best restaurants in town, and these guys were just blown away. I asked them if I could make dinner reservations for them, and they just had the best table and the best spot, got the sunset, incredible food. I know the owners, the waitress, so they get special service, a lot of fun. And this is Rovin at night, just a magical place. And we often take, sunset cruises and to see the dolphins and catch the sunset. And beautiful, magical, bohemian, artsy place that people just love. This is Rovin at night, cobblestone streets, and just the, it's like nowhere else you could ever imagine. Nearby, we'll go to Pula, which you're probably surprised to know that the Romans were there. So this is a 3,000-year-old city owned and occupied by 9 different nations and empires. A fascinating history. And it has one of the best preserved Roman arenas there. So we tour that, we walk through the city, through the Hercules gates, 2,000-year-old temple, on our way to Opatia, which is on the coast, which was an Austrian-Hungarian resort location, and it's protected by the mountains there and protected by the islands. So the air quality is fantastic. The water is incredible, often super smooth. And there's an incredible 14-kilometer walk along the coastline past all these hot Austrian-Hungarian mansions and through these little coves and inlets and little coffee shops and restaurants. And this is Angelina, the statue of her with her seagull, which is famous. So it's we stay in a pretty opulent hotel there, just the experience, and have a great dinner at I know a family-run restaurant. This is the owner and her sister, and it's just fabulous. Alita, she's wonderful, and it's just a great little experience. You won't find this in on TripAdvisor or in any of the guidebooks. So Plitvica is a pretty famous place. You've probably seen these photographs. You can see up top the walking trail with some people on it. And it's not a hiking area. It's really a walk on a raised platform. It's the most popular tourist destination in Croatia, and it is cool, but it can be extremely crowded. So I spent some time there and found that there's a secret entrance, and also found out that if you go outside of the opening hours, there's less people. So we often drive there, get there in the evening, check in, and do an afternoon.
Joining us at the Outdoor Adventure Expo.
Oh,
Sauter's Pasties and Pies has a food truck outside at the entrance of the tent on 3rd Street. Lakes and Legends is serving beer in the boatyard.
oh, we're getting the announcements in Adam's office, I guess. Anyway, so but it is a beautiful place with lakes and waterfalls, and but this is what it can be like just during the day. And so we often do a evening walk and then a morning walk to avoid this, where you're literally pushed off the trail and you can't see anything. Yeah, and it's like this. Unbelievable, not much fun. So we head off early and get the first boat over. There's a back entrance and a lodge that I've found that's fabulous right near there. And so we sort of have a VIP access. And it's just, you know, people have said, oh, we plan to spend a couple of days there. And it's really not that much to see. You kind of do the lower lakes, the upper lakes, and you're kind of out of there by midday. There's some great hiking in Croatia, you know, on the islands as well. It often takes some work to get to. So I don't know that I would go to Croatia for a hiking trip. And there's so many different places to see, and you're traveling from place to place. So it's more kind of walking, but there is certainly some hikes there. My hiking trip, we do more hiking than the Croatian Slovenia walking adventure, as I called it. And I did spend a month sailing around the islands, which was fantastic. Great experience. Glad I did it. And, you know, don't need to do it again. You're in pretty close quarters. I invited guests and friends to come for different weeks, and really glad I did it. But yeah, one of those bucket list things. So one of the trips I'm most excited about, I used to do a separate Croatia trip and then a separate Slovenia trip. And then I found that, you know, a lot of Croatia as you head further down the coast. So this is the Istria Peninsula. You can see the Groznan, Rovinj, Pula, Opadia. Heading south from there, and certainly Plitvica is cool, but south of there, I just didn't like as much. The vegetation changes. It's much more arid, much more hot, a lot more touristy, a lot more driving. So I try to keep driving to a minimum. And a lot of the fun stuff that happens on my trips is between the places that I've found that are super cool to stop and explore, or go for a walk, or see something, or stop at a coffee shop. And so I just found that I felt better about combining a tour of Croatia and Slovenia. So that's what I do now, and it's one of the best trips I do. And so I've covered part of going through Croatia, and then we don't actually stop in Zagreb because it's a big city, and I don't do big cities, except we do Ljubljana. And Ljubljana is, I wouldn't call it a big city. The Old Town is one of the coolest capital cities in all of Europe. I just think it's amazing. I don't like cities, but I could live there for a couple of months, no problem. And from there we go up to Lake Bled, which is famous, Bohin, which very few people have heard of. Beautiful lake, far fewer people. And then we go over to Smartno. I don't know why it's not on this map, where there's an incredible winery I found. It's like the Tuscany of Slovenia, and it's like 5 miles from the Italian border. So we'll show you some photos of that. But this is a 9-day trip. I actually had a group this year that extended it to 12 days, which was even better. But it's a great trip, and you know, these two countries, you really feel like you're, you know, just exploring, which is really fun. So this is the van I take people around in. This year I had a bright green one, which actually turned out to be great because people could see it in a parking lot or from anywhere. 9-seater, very comfortable. And often on the Croatian Slovenia trips, I just have 6 people. So a lot of room, plenty of room for luggage. Ljubljana, as I was talking about, is a fabulous place. We spend a couple of nights there, the castle up above, and it's hard to see him, but this is Dragon, who is the best tour guide in Slovenia, and he always takes my groups around for a couple of hours and just knows everything about everything. And really, it's a fascinating way to get to know a town. Of course, we always have what we call chin chin at 5 o'clock at different local bars that I know, and try and just show people a fun time. And that's what it's all about. And as you can see, these guys look like they're having fun. How could you not? So we do head up into the Julian Alps to named after Julius Caesar, to do a half-day hike. I think I have photos of that. And this is Lake Bleb, which has a cool castle, cool little town. You can do a walk around the lake, paddle out to the chapel on the island in the middle of the lake, walk the 119 steps to the bell tower, ring the bell 3 times, and all your wishes will be granted. So there's some great hiking in the Julian Alps. It's a lot of fun, nothing too difficult, but some beautiful gorges, some great places to, oh, this is the Julian Alps. This is the backside of Triglav Peak, the highest peak in Slovenia. Beautiful, beautiful. And it's considered, you're not a true Slovenian until you've climbed it. So they have school groups going up this thing, and it's pretty intense, actually. There's a knife edge ridge with a chain on top, near the top. So we just do a hike below the north face, and then there's a mountaineering museum we go to, which is very cool, award-winning, and then stop for lunch at a wonderful little mountain lodge on the way, and try different food and strudel, as you can see, and just all good fun. There's waterfalls to hike to, and then just Bohin Lake, where we spend a couple of nights, is just, not many people get there. Everyone sort of bled, and it's just one of the most tranquil, beautiful, serene places. I've had people take stand-up paddleboards out, canoes, kayaks, swimming, walking around the lake. And there's no town there. There's just a hotel, which is fabulous. And then we do take the cable car up Vogel Mountain and do a hike. This is a family. They came back on their 4th trip with me this year, and planning the next one. And with Triglav in the background from the other side than when where we hiked from it. And there's a beautiful gorge, Tolman Gorge, with beautiful colored water. And there's a nice hike you can do there. And then I found this incredible family-run 7th generation winery that I feel like I'm going home when I go there. It's like hugs and tears and hi and bye. And we get to tour the winery and the cellar, and we can help cook in the kitchen there. And Anushka, the hostess, and it's just this super fun, peaceful. Oh, there's my green van. And it's a working farm. And we have dinner there and try the wines and drink too much and eat too much. And it's just a wonderful place to end the trip, because from there we head back to Venice Airport. And, but oh, what a highlight. I've had people say this one place was worth the price of the trip. It's such a jewel, such a incredible place. Sunsets from there are amazing. And sometimes we have the whole place to ourselves. So yeah, really, it's a really fun trip. I call it a walking adventure because we do some walking, something active every day, which I'm always keen on. And we see a lot of places and do a lot of fun things. But both those countries, Croatia and Slovenia, put them on your list, because someday they'll get discovered and there'll be more people there, but they're super wonderful places. Okay, so we're off to the high Tatras of Slovakia. As I mentioned, my wife's Slovakian. We were dating probably for a year before I realized, oh, Czechoslovakia. So Yeah, they had what was called the Velvet Divorce 20 odd years ago. And so they're consider themselves like brother sister countries. A lot of people have been to Prague. I've never been to Prague, driven through it. Probably should go there, but I'm not into cities. I like nature. I like the mountains. So no doubt I'll go there sometime, but yeah, not in any hurry. No, it's interesting where we live in, it's not even near, you can see Zvolen on the map there. So I'm just below Zvolen here in Klokoch, 514 people in this little town. And my wife has an apartment in Detva. And Banks, where is it? Zvolen is basically the center of Slovakia and the center of Europe. If you put a compass point in Zvolen and put it all around Europe, it's right in the center of Europe. So, you know, we're a couple hours from Budapest, a couple hours from Vienna, a couple hours from Prague. And the High Tatras are a couple hours away from where we are. So Bratislava is the capital. And I've done a lot of exploring in Slovakia, not as much as Croatia and Slovenia. And I did my first trip this year, was supposed to be, last year, but COVID sort of put a dent in that. So this year I met a good friend of mine, John, who's been on 5 trips with me, planning his 6th and 7th. And we just have a great time together. So I'm not adverse to taking one person. I often take 2. Average group size is 4, 5, 6, but this is what I love to do. So I'd much rather take one person and 2 people and go out and do what I love to do than sit at home on my laptop or whatever. Though now that I have this land, I have a lot more work to do and some fun projects, which is fun. It's very satisfying. But we stayed at a cool hotel in Bratislava where I met John. I just drove from a trip to Lake Garda, and then we headed off to the High Tatra. This is the view from John's room. And we did a little walk around the lake on the first day. The next day it was a little overcast, so I always have a plan B. And so we headed off to visit Spitz Castle, which is pretty phenomenal. And then we were going to go to some caves, but since it was raining, everyone else was there. And then we thought, COVID times, probably not good to be in a cave. And speaking of COVID, you know, I had some cancellations this year where people were worried about the US shutting or different countries shutting down, and it didn't happen. And it was a great time to be in Europe because there was very, very few people. And so, yeah, you had to wear your mask inside, but often we dine outside. I always pick smaller hotels and you know, less touristy places. And also the times that you go to places can influence how many people are there. So we were very careful, took every precaution, and had a great time. And I certainly believe that by next summer, even though Europe isn't doing that well right now, I have full faith that by next year, we'll be back on track. And I'm getting a lot of bookings for trips next year. And it's a great time to go to Europe because there's not a lot of people traveling. So I did some great hikes with John in the High Tatras. It's, you know, there's every hiking trail for every ability and level and interest. And I'm always trying to, you know, I'm pretty darn good at tailoring the walks to the group and to people so that we do enough, but not too much. And there's always more that people can do at the end of the day. This is a cable car you can tuck up to the highest point in the Tatras, Lominsky Stick.
Send him into the boat department, please. Send him into the boat department.
There you go. Another announcement. And yeah, we took the chairlift up on the left and walked over to a viewpoint on the left there. John nor I wanted to get in a cramped cable car and do that. So we did a great hike that day anyway. And then we went to, this is Clockage. This is the little town where I'm at. I don't think we can see. Well, yeah, my place is like right above John's head. So we did a hike in the area. It was quite an adventure. And part of the Slovakia trip is, and John stayed in a 16th century castle. And that was fun for him. But we did, you know, the Slovakia trip, I know a lot of people, families there. So he got to try my mother-in-law's borscht. And, you know, we had coffee with my wife's daughter and had a grill party with some friends. And it was a much different experience, but not one that you'd get on the normal tourist route. So here's the view from my place. We had a grill party with the neighbors who brought over grappa. It was a fun time. So yeah, and the hill on the right is the hill that John and I hiked around. So now we call it John's Hill. So very fun. But those are the low TATRA'S in the distance, and behind them are the high TATRA'S, which are pretty darn impressive. So we can do some more intense hikes there, and I'm excited to do that. I'm going to do some more exploring this summer. And then it's interesting, they have these porters that, yeah, they call them Sherpas. There's about 60 Sherpas who work in the mountains in the summer season, carrying supplies to huts at altitudes up to 2,200 meters. So they carry these enormous loads, 60, 80 kilos. And some of them, you know, they get paid, but some of them are in their 60s and they've just been doing it for years, and they kind of love to do it. So it's kind of cool. And you sometimes can see them on the trails taking the supplies up into the mountains to the high huts. So Slovenia was rated as Lonely Planet Travel Guide's best destination for 2018, maybe. And then Lonely Planet rated the High TATRA'S the #1 destination, best in Europe, for 2019. So, you know, it's a cool place, and very few people go there. And from here, you can combine, you know, going to Venice, Budapest, Krakow, not Krakow, and Prague. So there's a lot going on here. And just a view from sunset view from the High TATRA'S, beautiful place. So when should you go? It's different in each place. Croatia has a kind of a longer season, but April through November. And I've been there in the end of November, swam in the Adriatic. And after that, you know, the weather changes. It's pretty cold. A lot of the buildings are made out of stone. So it can be very cold. You know, the wind's blowing. So walking along the coast is not very fun. All the shops are closed. It's just pretty dead. It can be pretty gray and unappealing. But April, May, June is fabulous in Croatia. Mid-June can start getting hot. July, much busier, hotter. I've done trips in August and managed to keep away from the crowds, but in August it's pretty darn hot, and that's when most of Europe takes their vacations. September's fabulous, and I do most of my trips in May through mid-June. Then I go to the Dolomites, where it's fabulous there, and then late September, when the Dolomites shuts down, through mid-October to the end of October, it still is fantastic. And I think I said till the end of November, but I think really it's end of October, and then, you know, it can be a little iffy. Slovenia it's a little higher, a little more north. So probably, June through late September, mid-October. I've done a lot of trips in October, and it's beautiful with the fall colors, fewer people. Slovakia, kind of same thing, mid-June. But world weather's changing so much. It seems the winters are milder and shorter. So, early June, and people are hiking in the TATRA'S through the end of November, and it's just can be spectacular. Often there's like an Indian summer. So I suggest people, to fly into major airports like Vienna, for example, or Venice, Budapest, and around Slovakia, Slovenia, they have good train services that you can use. Ljubljana would be a great place to base yourself out of. And otherwise, Croatia, a car. It's not very expensive. You're flying all that way, and it's just a hassle to try and do anywhere else. Some people ask me, why to go with a guide, and it's like the difference between walking around a museum or an art gallery by yourself or with an expert, somebody that can tell you the history of the paintings and, oh, let's cut this way and let's go this way, or this room's crowded, let's do this. And, when you have relationships with people along the way and you get the best rooms and the best tables and the best service, and you're treated like a member of the family, and you just, there's a different element when you're part of the family at a hotel and knowing the back roads to go and the itinerary that you've worked on for years and years and years and years to perfect it so that it's amazing and you're not wasting a lot of time. And the amount of stuff we put into a day is pretty amazing, let alone, letting an expert do the driving. I'm a very smooth and safe driver, and, never have a problem with people with car sickness, and people can look out the windows and enjoy the views, and I can talk about what's going on, where we're going, the history, and people don't have to worry about that. So let's see. And it's often the places you'll see and the things you'll experience between the places, the side trips I take, and the little coffee shops or the restaurants or the walking trails that I've found that, you basically, never find on your own. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, here's my wife, Katerina, and I in the High Tatras, and Katerina now the last few years has joined me on a lot of trips, and people adore her. When we met, she spoke 3 words of English, which I joke was "leave me alone." But we just have a great time together, and she comes on trips and people adore her, and great to have her along. So I'm hoping she can continue to join me on these trips. And if this works, let's see if it is going to work. No, okay. Let me just see if I can get this to work. This was, no, it doesn't look like it is. So it looks like I've pretty much gone through my notes and have a little bit of time to answer some questions if people have any questions. Okay. Well, I've enjoyed talking with you. I'd love to show you around these wonderful countries and invite you to join me. My website, Right Path Adventures, it's just me, survived COVID, and still raring to get out there and do what I love to do and show people these wonderful countries. So if you have any questions, you can email me at Gary at Right Path Adventures. I'm going to be in the US on a road trip, renting a 30-foot RV. We're traveling. I have a talk in Southern California, and then touring some national parks in Utah and Arizona. You can always call me at 435-729-9107. And I'd love to chat with you, and love to, show you around some of these amazing places. So thank you so much for joining today, and all the best. And thank you very much, Midwest Mountaineering. All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure.